Hey everyone, welcome back to Sweet Yellow House. It's time for our weekly video. We are going to have a little bit of something different, so just stay tuned and see. So for our project one, we are doing a faux vintage book, and this is this little storage box that I believe I got at the Goodwill. I've had it for probably a little over a year. So I'm going to take some Adirondack white chalk paint, and I'm going to do a base coat on this. At this point I was kind of confused or not sure which direction I was going, so I thought I'd just give myself a clean slate to start with. So I got some of my melange inlays from IOD, and I'm cutting out some of the inlays that I wanted to use. I got this damask fusion sample from my friend Deanna over at the Royalty at Once, and she's at the Vintage Holes. I think I talked about her last week. So I'm gonna do a couple of coats of this color on this book, and I really love the paint. I will say I'm not 100% sure I like to use it with inlays, just because it has a built-in like top coat sealer, and it just makes it a little bit difficult, but the paint itself is wonderful. So I put down a layer of paint and I set the inlay in and get it where I want, and now I'm spritzing that, and I'm going to pat that down really well so that I can make sure that I get a good transfer with that. I'm also going to do something on the spine, so I just do the same process, and I'm going to let those dry. I want to make sure that I'm pushing those down really good, because I want to make sure that I get a really good impression from those inlays. Once I let those dry, I come back with my spritzer bottle, and I'm going to mist that, and I'm pull those back. Like I said, I did end up tearing that inlay carrier sheet, and that's the first time that's ever happened to me. I'm not sure if it was from the paint, just because it's different than the DIY that I usually use, but nonetheless it came out great, so I was happy with that. I'm going to seal this with some Big Top mixed with some water, 50-50. I do a spray. I am getting some large drops, so I just grabbed a paintbrush, a soft paintbrush, and I'm pouncing those out. I'm not swiping because I do not want to smear the paint on that inlay. And I do the same for the spine there. I let those dry overnight, and I want to seal that with some clear wax. I want to give it a kind of like almost like a old book, you know, leather bound book that looks old and vintage, and so that's why I'm doing the clear wax. And after I let that dry for a few minutes, I grab the same clear wax, but I'm also going to grab some of my Debbie's DIY dark wax, and I'm going to mix those together, going around the edges just to give it an antique, and then feathering that out with my finger worked really well. That clear wax base made this pretty easy to do. Once I let that set up, I'm going to grab my gilding wax in gold, and I'm just going to go around the edges with that. My wax was fairly dry. I was having difficulties getting that to spread really well, so I mixed some of that with some alcohol, and that actually loosened up that wax really well, and I was able to get it to spread really easy. Once I went all the way around, I just grabbed my finger and used that to I used my finger, and I used that just to go around the edges to gild those as well. Loving this book, how it looks. I just think it looks like an authentic old, you know, vintage leather book. My project 2 is rustic chic buckets. I grabbed these buckets from the dollar store. I'm gonna start out with removing the handles from the buckets. I just didn't like them, so I just kind of bent them back and forth and removed those. when I removed the handles, I was left with some little holes on the side, so I'm gonna grab my UV resin that I cure with the light, and I'm gonna use that to fill the holes. Using a glove on my hand, I'm gonna push my finger to the back of that so the resin doesn't fall through, and I'm just gonna cure it for a few seconds, remove my finger, and then finish curing that. I'm gonna do that on the outside and inside to give it some more thickness. And once I have that done, I grab a file and I'm gonna file that resin down just a little bit, just so it's not so clumpy. I fix a little kind of like break in there with the resin as well. It's really good for that. Once I have all that done, I grab some vintage linen from DIY, some salt wash, and I'm mixing that together. I actually do that in this pot here. I normally don't do that, but I'm doing it here only because there was only a little paint left, and I knew I was going to use it all. So I'm doing 2 coats on these buckets, inside and out, and I'm going to let that dry between each coat. Once those were dry, I'm grabbing my IOD ink pad and ink in the stone gray, and since it's a new pad, I'm inking that up and I'm giving it 10 to 15 minutes for that ink to soak in. I'm grabbing my La Campagna stamp set and also the birds and bees stamp set, and I'm going to use a couple of different ones from each set. Here you see, because these are new stamps, I'm gonna sand those down before I start, and then just inking my ink pad, my stamps up. I am stamping those kind of randomly in places, and I'm doing all 3 buckets in the same fashion. This ink dries very fast, so you don't really have to worry about smearing it. Since the stamps are pretty flexible, going around that curve is fairly easy. So I let those dry for about 5 minutes, and then I grab the Jolie clear wax and I'm giving these a coat over all 3, inside and out. Once that's dry, I'm mixing together again the DIY dark wax and the Jolie clear wax, just to kind of blow that out so it's not so intense, and I'm just going around antiquing the bucket. These are really cute. I just love them. They're good, you know, they're just lovely. I have some in my kitchen and one in my restroom, so I really love them. And now we're gonna have a little chat. Okay, I thought I would try something different. The truth is that I hate voiceovers. I'm not good at it. I don't like it. I tend to put off finishing editing my videos because I hate voiceovers. It drives me insane. And no matter how much I practice or whatever I do, like, I just come off sounding stupid, so to myself, you know what I mean. So anyhow, I thought I would try this and see if this was any better. I will do maybe part of it as voiceovers and part of it as this. Let me know what you like. Some people are bothered by it, and honestly, nobody, like, no subscribers have been, but my family has told me that it sounds off. So, but that's probably only because they know me personally and they know how I normally talk. So anyhow, I have a lot to say, but in my videos, because I try to make them, you know, so you're not sitting there for hours on end, I tend to rush through the voiceovers and stuff. So I just wanted to kind of be able to chat about the things that are going on and the things that I do and stuff, and
just why I wasn't putting out videos. I have a lot of stuff happening here at the house. We're redoing, you know, some of the house, like just redecorating, but that's a lot of painting, a lot of plastering, things like that. So, you know, once you get done with that, you don't feel like, you know, doing other things. Also too, I know I should tape those things, but I really just, I'm a pretty private person, and I don't like to show like every aspect of my life. Props to those people that do it. I'm not criticizing. I just am not one of those people. So I don't always tend to comb my hair every day or put on makeup. You know, I get up, I'm with my animals, I go out and garden in my pajamas, and then I come in and I'll craft in my pajamas. I get dressed about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because my husband's coming home and I don't want to look a complete mess. But I mean, I tend to, you know, spend the majority of my time being comfortable in my home. So having to put makeup on and get dressed up and things like that for no reason is just a waste of my energy. And the reason why I say waste of my energy is because I have a form of muscular dystrophy. It's called myotonic dystrophy. And so my energy every day is very limited. Some days I feel good, some days I don't feel good. I have a very small amount of energy, and I want to use it doing the things that I want to do. I don't want to use it, you know, combing my hair or doing things like that, or blow drying my hair. I have really long hair. It takes me like 45 minutes to do that, and then to put makeup on and stuff like that. And the nature of my personality is that I'm a perfectionist, and if I'm not going to do it right, I don't want to do it at all. And that sounds weird, but that's just, you know, my nature. So anyhow, I just wanted to kind of do that, say a couple of things without like rushing through my video and all of this. And I'm thinking about closing my store, my online store, my Squarespace store, and maybe putting my stuff in a like a craft booth. I think mainly because for some reason I don't get a lot of traffic on there, and I'm sure it's probably my fault because I don't advertise enough that I do have a storefront. I like a lot of times I put it in my description box of my videos and stuff, but to tell you the truth, there's not a whole lot of times. I have just been like one of those people that have just started reading that, you know, reading the description and looking at stuff in there, and a lot of times I do that because I'm looking to see if they link the products that they're using or things like that, which I don't tend to do, because I don't know why. I think I'm gonna give it a little like good old college try, like a couple of months, and just see if I'm going to try to advertise it more and do more. But if it just doesn't pick up within the next couple of months, it's just really, I mean, I would rather put it towards a booth, and I know that I'm going to get foot traffic, you know, at least, and then I'll have somewhere to put it also, because, you know, anybody that makes stuff constantly, you know that you are inundated all over your house, and there you can only put your projects in so many places in your house before it just becomes super crowded everywhere. And that's what I feel like. I feel like my garage, I have like a little room in my garage that I've kind of taken over, and all my stuff is in there that, you know, is in my store. Not a whole lot. This, I mean, you can see my craft room. I do clean it. It's, what do they call it? A organized mess, or it's organized chaos. I think that's what you would call it. So video more things and kind of put my face in with more things. I just, you know, I'm not going to always have the best combed hair, I guess, and I just need to get over that. And I'm sure all of you craft like that, right? Like in your pajamas and stuff. Does everybody else do that, or is that just me? I can't believe that it's just me. A lot of times too, it's like you get so excited to go in and finish a project, like you're up and you go in and check on it, and then you just find yourself 3 hours later, you're still standing there in your pajamas working on it. Yeah, that's me. I have a little tiny chicken coop in my kitchen right now that has 3 chicks in it, if that tells you anything about the kind of house we run here. Along with the dogs that are here that, you know, sit and stare at, you know, because we have a little window and the little chicken coop thing that they could see in, so they'll just stare inside and stare at the chickens. It's pretty cute. Let's see. I don't know. Do you guys have any questions? Like, put them in the description box. I know, like, a lot of people are always curious about things, especially when all you ever see is my hands doing this and stuff, and you don't really ever hear, you know, see my face. But again, like I said, it's just, and I'm not into that whole thing. Like, I've seen a lot of YouTubers say how mean people can be, and I myself have only experienced that, like, actually once. And I think because I've worked in retail like most of my life, I'm able to kind of let that stuff roll off my back, because to me, when people are mean, or say things, like, it doesn't, what they say doesn't make you that. It's just what they say. I mean, you know, and I tend to just let it roll. You know, when people are mean, it says a lot more about them than it does about you, right? So I could either respond to it or choose to let them, you know, kind of root around in their own crap. If that's the way they like to live their life, then you could do it by yourself. I have no time for it. I really don't. So also too, I'm not like loud and funny. I have a very dry sense of humor. So a lot of times a lot of people don't get my sense of humor. But so I just tend to, like, not be all bubbly. I'm not that kind of person. But unless I know you really, really well, you know, and then you get my sense of humor, and so that makes things even funnier, I guess, for me. I have a lot of things planned for this upcoming year, and if, you know, if you're interested in seeing my online store, it's a Sweet Yellow House at Squarespace. A lot of the things that you see me make here are on there. I also, things that I've thrifted, like vintage finds that, but go look, take a look. I just feel like I'm spinning my wheels with that whole thing. And when you put it online, it does take a while, because you're having to, you know, you have to measure the size, you have to weigh it, you have to write a description for it, you got to take pictures of it, and then upload it, and, you know, and that takes a lot of time. So sometimes it's just easier to put it in a booth and, you know, let it speak for itself, kind of thing. So yeah. And then I tend to not, you know, I wait till I should just put it on there when I have it, like, you know, not wait till I have a pile of it, and then I'm like, ugh, I don't want to do it. So anyway, I'm going to get back to my crafts, and I just wanted to come out on here and say hello, and I guess I'll start showing my face a little more at a time, and I get comfortable with that, and hopefully someday I'll be good at voiceovers. I doubt it, but we'll see what happens. So anyway, have a good one.
Project 3 is a utensil tray. I'm going to upcycle this little tray that I got from Target. I'm going to start out by removing the bottom of that, just by undoing the screws there. Easy enough. I grabbed my melange inlay set and grabbed a little fork and spoon from that. I have this aviary green color that I really love from DIY, and I'm going to use that and do several coats on the bottom piece. I do several coats, and I actually use my heat gun to dry those because I'm interested in getting through this project fairly quickly. So I use it all through this project. I also kind of wanted to see how it worked when I used it with inlay to dry that faster instead of letting it dry overnight. So I put that into place, patted it down, and then while that was down, I just did another coat around the outside just to kind of even that layer out. And then I'm going to use, like I said, my heat gun and dry all that. I did actually let this sit for about 10 minutes just to make sure it was really dry, and then I went back in with my mister and misted that and pulled back the inlay. I have some kind of like texture there from the paper inlay, so I just kind of smoothed those out with some more paint. I'm going to use a little sander and sand some of that rough edges off, but I'm also then going to go in and wet distress that as well. Once I got done with that, I'm going to grab my big top, and I use that and do a couple of coats of that, drying each coat in between each coat with my heat gun. And once I got those, I did set that aside for a little bit to make sure that everything was dry before I put it back together. And then once it was, I just put it back in and reattached it with the screws. I wanted to make sure that I did some really good coats as far as like sealing it, because I knew things were going to be set on top of that and I didn't want to damage it too much. Project 4 is like a faux vintage wall decor. I just kind of came up with this idea. I grabbed this frame from the Goodwill. I actually had to go and kind of hunt for the perfect size that I needed. And I started out by removing the back and taking out the staples that were there and removing all the pieces together. That was not glass. I just realized that it was plexiglass when I removed it, but that's okay because I'm not going to use it, so it's all good. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint this the frame with some vintage linen and also some salt wash, and I'm going to again mix that together in the pot. Like I said, I don't normally do that, but I only had a little bit left, and so I just went ahead and mixed more in there. I did a couple of coats, letting it dry between each coat, and also using my heat gun with that as well. I went out to my garage and I cut a piece of drywall that would fit into that frame, and I brought it inside. I'm going to cover this with some plaster of Paris, and it's 2 parts plaster, 1 part water. I will say that this stuff mixes fairly well and easy, but it does dry fast, so you need to work fairly fast with it. So I kind of slap that down with a chip brush, and then I'm using a sea sponge that is damp, and I'm going over that to give it more texture. I let that dry overnight. Using this French wall panel Jamie Ray vintage stencil, I'm going to measure that so that it's sitting in the center of that piece of drywall. Tape it down, and then I'm going to squeegee. I mix some more of that plaster of Paris there, and you will have to maybe add a little bit more just to thicken it up, but you don't want it too thick because, like I said, it is going to get thick really fast. So let it thicken a little bit, and then I use like a spatula type knife, and I just smear that over. I tear it off, or I pull up the stencil immediately. You don't want to let it dry there, or you'll never get it off. And then take it outside and use water to wash it while it's still wet. I let that dry overnight, and then I went in with the DIY apothecary, and I did a couple of coats with that, letting it dry between each coat. I let it sit overnight. I grabbed my Jolie wax, and I'm going to do a layer of wax over this with this really nice big Jolie brush that I got. I like this brush because it's big and you can do a lot of area, but you just need to make sure that you're not being so rough that you're going to knock off any of that 3D effect that you made with the plaster of Paris. Once I got that completely coated, I grabbed DIY white wax, mixed it with the Jolie wax just so that it would go a little bit further and kind of blend out a little bit better. And I'm using a small brush just so I can get in between that detail, and my goal here is to get that wax down in there. Once I got that place where I wanted, I grabbed the Jolie brush again, and I'm feathering that all out just to kind of make sure that it, you know, blends together really well. After I was done with that, I grabbed some the DIY dark wax and mixed that with the Jolie clear wax like you've seen me do before, and that's just so I could get a little bit more playtime and it's not so dark. Using the same brush, I wiped it out of that white wax, and my whole point is I'm not rubbing or swiping. I'm really pouncing that wax, that dark wax, into that those crevices and making sure it's down. Once I got that covered, again I grabbed the big Jolie brush and I feathered all of that out. Once that was done, I grabbed my gilding wax and I went over using my finger and just highlighted all the high points of that design. Once I was satisfied with that, again I grabbed the Jolie brush, and what I did was I'm using that brush to kind of meld everything together to make it so that it's nice and blended together. I wanted to use the mat that came with that picture, but I wanted to kind of give it a little bit more bling, so I went over that with the gilding wax as well and just using my finger. Once I was done with that, I grabbed a little sanding block and I just wanted to kind of distress that frame that I had painted earlier, wiping all the dust off with just a wet paper towel. Once I was done with that, I went back to my gilding wax and just highlighted some points on that frame. I grabbed that same mixture that I had left over from before and of the dark wax and the clear wax, and I just kind of wanted to bring that white down a little bit just so that it didn't look so fresh. I was very light-handed with this, very light-handed. Once I let that sit up, now I'm just kind of putting everything together. So I put that down, I'm putting the mat over that, and then I'm going to bring the frame in. And that's the way it looks all together. I attached it, took it out to the garage and attached everything together, and this is how it looks. I am so happy with the way this turned out. I wanted it to look like a piece that maybe came out of an old building that you framed for art. I'm so happy with the way that it turned out. I think I'm definitely going to use this kind of technique on some more projects that I have coming up. So thank you for watching and spending your time with me. I really do appreciate it, and I look forward to all the upcoming things that we are have planned for the year. And I hope you enjoyed the projects today, and until I see you again.